Hey fam, welcome or welcome back. Tisha here, back for another chapter reading of The Witness War Red, the 19th wife who brought polygamous cult leaders to justice. Go ahead and do me a favor and hit the like button as we jump into our next chapter, chapter 15, The Truman Show. Once back in Coos Bay, we began to explore the gorgeous scenery of the Northwest. The area was full of windy, scenic byways with breathtaking ridges of pines, slick rock, sand, and sea. The first time I crossed the massively tall bridge and saw enormous piles of clamshells dumped from barrages, I was smitten. Chilly air still bit into my bones, but now it felt cleansing. I knew instinctively that it was going to take a lot to heal from my past, and the ocean quickly became my greatest ally. I could get used to the chill and live each day among the lush foliage under the sky, which was deep turquoise until the fog rolled in late in the afternoon, muting the colors and details of shops, houses, and even people. While I wasn't at the beach or in the forest, though, I was paralyzed in fear of the outside world. I had no idea how to do my hair, how to dress, and what customs, holidays, or social rituals to follow. I was still wearing long dresses, the only clothes I owned, and poofing my hair, so Cole decided to take me shopping. Buy whatever you want, he said. With literally no idea what to choose, I ended up with a jogging suit and a shirt in the shocking and once forbidden shade of red. Afterward, Cole brought me to a hair salon. I was terrified. I had never cut my hair except to carefully trim the ends. I wasn't facing the mirror, but I blanched as I saw yards and yards of my rich brown hair hit the ground. The stylist did some things with the blow dryer before turning me around. I gasped. My hair had been chopped to my shoulders, but it was the way she had styled it that took my breath away. When I got home, I shyly walked through the door. I saw appreciation shining in Ben's eyes. Even though it felt so foreign and naked, I thought perhaps I could live with short hair. However, the only product I had ever used was hairspray, and lots of it. The next day, I woke up and brushed my hair, and it didn't look anything like it had the day before. How many of us have gone and gotten our hair done, and when we wake up, it's a completely different experience? I know for me, my hair is natural, and when I straighten it, it's literally to get my ends clipped because it reverts back. For those of you who don't know what revert means, it means that it shrinks back into its natural coil. So it shrinks back quickly, and it's just, yeah, clip my ends so I can put it in a bun or just wear it, out. Anyways, I don't have any idea how to do my hair, I cried to Cole. Everything I do looks wrong. Tell you what, he said, winking at me. Whatever feels right to you, do the exact opposite. Then you'll be fine. He turned away laughing, but I shut the door on him and silently sobbed. It's the little things. She's panicking about how to do her hair. And I never even thought about that because they are told what way to wear it. And here she is now where she's able to make choices for herself. And she's talking about the internal struggles that she's having in making these choices. These people are really not given the ability of free will. A lot of their things are dictated to them. Oh my goodness. Men didn't understand that a woman's hair was considered her glory. Not only was mine gone, it now looked ugly and made me feel that way inside. For days, I cried in private, feeling homesick and missing my mother and sisters and friends desperately. So I'm guessing she didn't tell the stylist like what length she wanted or anything like that. Or maybe she didn't know because she's having troubles making simple decisions, but she's calling it ugly. I wonder what it really looked like. I wonder if she has a picture in here. Anyways, let's keep going. In the meantime, our thoughts were consumed with survival. Ben and I couldn't allow ourselves to wear out our welcome with Cole, and we needed to start earning money immediately. We went looking for jobs around Coos Bay and adjacent North Bend. 2 weeks and countless applications later, I've got I finally got a job offer from Elizabeth's, a fine dining establishment off Highway 101, and Ben was hired by a downtown restaurant called the Cedar Grill. Now, I wasn't expecting Ben to get a restaurant. I don't know why I was expecting him to do something more labor intensive, because that's a lot of what they do. But okay, let's see where it goes from here. November went by in a whirlwind. Everything was new, exciting, thrilling, and sobering to me. I began reading. Ooh, Alexa. I don't want to. Oh, no, I do know that. Voraciously. Following Cole's recommendations, I was fascinated by the philosophies of successful people like Stephen Covey, Joe Vitale, and Deepak Chopra, Chopra. Excitedly, I sat on Cole's front porch and called my mother for the first time, anxious to share with her what I was learning in life and through books. While she was glad to know I was safe and relieved I had reconnected with Cole, she was negative about everything else, telling me I traded my salvation for material goods. See, I don't know if I would be able to call if I kept getting berated. I think for me, it would be a situation where I would have to say, we're going to call and we're going to talk, and you're not going to say that, or we're not going to talk. Just because she doesn't need to get beat up every time she's making this call. And I know her mother means well, because her mother was indoctrinated in this thing for however long she's been in it. But it's not helping the situation. But that's her probably desperate attempt to get her child to come back and endure more suffering, I guess. Anyways, honey, she said, you're talking about stuff, only stuff. Do you know what you are trading for stuff? She was more closed off than I had ever heard her. Warren's warnings had clearly affected her. I knew she had been ordered not to talk to me and that I was supposed to be dead to her. She risked her FLDS membership and salvation by the very act of communicating with her apostate children. People had been kicked out for less. I watched a little television, surprised and often scandalized by how different it was from when we were kids. One night, Cole and Ben and I watched an R-rated movie in which a man and a woman had sex, and I became alarmed when they started making noises, loud ones. I didn't know people did that when they made love. Did everyone in the outside world do that? I did take comfort to something familiar when I discovered that Coos Bay was actually a very musical area. To answer her question, I don't think everybody in the world is loud, but I do think people make noises. I'll keep going. Ben caught me dancing across the kitchen one night in pure joy because I had discovered a local teacher who taught the harp, an instrument I had always wanted to play. I began taking lessons and took to it as naturally as I had the violin. It soothed my soul to play such a graceful, ethereal instrument, especially on rainy days. Since I had moved from the state with the least amount of rainfall per year to one with nearly the highest. When dull, gray days would begin to drive me insane, throwing myself into my music seemed to magically make my life balance out again. As November morphed into December, the weather worsened, but my love for Ben only grew. When the two of us talked about life, he used the word us, which was comforting. Cole had noticed that Ben and I were getting closer and was emphatic that Ben was welcome to stay as long as there was nothing sexual between us. Unfortunately, it was a tough promise to keep. We both wished to honor Cole's request, but we felt magnetically drawn to each other. Meanwhile, still weakened, Cole spent his time sleeping, reading, and watching movies. How is he paying for his home if he's not? It sounds like he's not working. Maybe they're chipping in, but this is interesting. Let's keep going. One particularly blustery day, he insisted that I watched a movie called The Truman Show. I've never watched that, y'all. So I don't know what it's about. Don't judge me. The main character, Truman Burbank, thank you for letting me know, is adopted as a baby by a television studio. As he grows, every important person in his life is simply an actor. Every part of his life is a set, but he doesn't know it. Whenever he wants something the production team can't provide, he's told that it's just not available. Why would you want that? Different characters ask him, your life is so perfect the way it is. When he has inklings, things just aren't right. He finally faces his dreaded fear of water and sets off in a boat for the horizon. Barely surviving a violent and horrendous storm manufactured by the producers, Truman discovers the horizon is actually a painted backdrop. Only then does he realize that his entire life has been a complete lie, set up for the camera and the benefit of strangers, the viewers. Full of that realization and the bitter disappointment of his false relationships, he walks off the set into his new life. As the credits roll, I sat dumbfounded. Within a few moments, though, I rose from the couch and began pacing ferociously. Not because, not just upset, get it together, girl, but enraged. The movie was a mirror of my own life. Oh, yeah. Before every decision I'd ever made, I'd ask myself, what would the prophet have me say? What would the prophet have me do? For every question, there had been an appropriate program answer. I was never allowed my own opinion. I had never developed the ability to choose. Yeah, all of my people were like that too. How had our belief system become so screwed up? I gave myself permission to look deeply at polygamy in a way I never ever had before. All of a sudden, nothing seemed holy about the structure that must be in place for polygamy to work. Why would God put a roughly equal number of males and females on the earth if he wanted a polygamous society? This structure meant that women didn't get the time, affection, and validation they so crave. And because only a select number of male leaders are righteous enough to receive multiple wives, not only do an extraordinarily high number of young men get kicked out, but the marriageable ages of girls becomes increasingly younger as the demand intensifies. Throw all of these factors into a climate in which the leaders make the people feel as if they can never question those leaders because that means questioning God himself. And then one has a recipe for spiritual abuse. Those who admit the truth of it were labeled as darkened, taken over, or possessed. How many times had I heard they can't see the truth because they've turned away from it? And the leaders made it shameful and dangerous for us to question polygamy out loud or in our hearts. Every way that I examined it, polygamy was neither healthy nor holy. Why could no one see it? Because they would not, unless, like me, they were denied the good graces of Warren Jeffs and experienced a rude awakening. For days, I was furious. And all I knew was that I did not want that perverse dictator Warren directing my show from his self-righteous pulpit. I felt intense shame and self-hatred for what I had allowed, especially Alyssa's wedding and the nightmare of her priesthood-dictated honeymoon. Now, more than ever, it felt like a cockleburr. A cockleburr? Alexa, how do you pronounce Cocklebur?
I pronounced that cockleburr.
Oh, I spelled it. Alexa, stop. I'm going to have to look up the definition of that. Cockleburr, I said it right, in my heart. Let's jump into the next chapter. Chapter 16, A Few Drops of Water. I awoke several days later feeling like the walking dead, bone-tired and incredibly nauseated. I figured my emotional turmoil had taken its toll, and I finally succumbed to the flu spreading at work. I took a day off, yet the symptoms persisted. I began to wonder if something else was going on. I had never known what birth control was. At Short Creek, trying to outdo God's natural laws was considered evil, and I hadn't needed it with Rulon. Although I had been extremely naive, I had seen enough friends and family struggle with pregnancy to understand the signs. Oh, so her and Ben have been doing things. Because how in the world is she pregnant if yeah, okay, let's see. Oh my God, I can't be pregnant. I ran to a bathroom heaving. With the vomit came the emotions of shame and guilt I'd been holding in. I couldn't help feeling that I had become everything Warren said I would be. Perhaps even worse, I had betrayed Cole's one request of me. Ben and I had tried staying away from each other, but our love had grown along with our desire to be together. Being alone each night in the living room had been a test we had been unable to pass. You okay, sis? Asked my brother, shuffling by the door as if on cue. Hurriedly, I collected myself, leaning against the sink for support. Sure, I said, mustering false cheer. Thanks for asking. Inside, I was devastated. What would Ben think if I were pregnant? Would he want a baby? Would he leave me? So I'm guessing Ben didn't know about protective measures either. If she's saying that she didn't, I'm guessing that's what happened with her, with him. And it's sad that she would think that he would leave her, but we'll see. From Short Creek, Scott and others gave us reports on what was happening with our families and close friends. It cut us both deeply to know the lies being publicly spread about us. Warren had become quite paranoid, placing more cameras on the Just property and more fences and security around it. You don't want these people to escape. I feel like that's one of the major problems I have, which makes this cult-like to me, is that you don't let the people roam the way that they want to. Like, literally everything is controlled. And he does that intentionally because he's scared of them getting out, because if they get out, then that means he can get caught. They can get caught for the things that they have done. He said it was to keep the wicked out, but I knew it was just as important to him to keep the people in. Exactly. I'd had a hard enough time escaping. How would any women flee Warren's clutches now? Despite the painful fallout, I had never been more grateful that I had found the courage to leave when I did. It had only been 6 weeks since we left, but we were now adjusting to a world oblivious to my sister wives and their plight. 6 weeks, and she's already possibly pregnant. Girl. I'm not judging. I'm just saying. Which, yeah. Ben and I went to his company Christmas party, where I clung to him like a mouse. We hadn't dared tell anyone where we came from. Instead, we were like ducks, calmly swimming new waters on the surface, but paddling like hell underneath. Our first Christmas was a culture shock as we witnessed warm traditions and gift giving, feeling poor and unsteady in our new environment. Except for work parties, Christmas had been just another day until Ben woke me up that morning. "Merry Christmas," he said, grinning, and placed 2 unwrapped presents in my lap. "But I didn't get you anything," I said, shocked and saddened. I hadn't any money to buy anything for him or Cole. In Ruland's home, the only celebrations we had were anniversaries, and not even birthdays were acknowledged. I opened my gifts, a calendar and a pair of pajamas, with tears in my eyes. To be acknowledged like this was very touching to me. As the days passed, I missed my old life like crazy, but couldn't help but see the beauty and majesty and the differences of the people and the customs outside of the FLDS. A couple of days later, I had a dream. We were young students in Warren's classroom, where he had been teaching us priesthood history and about the government coming after the prophet during the destructions. Are you willing to stand by the prophet? Are you willing to die for the prophet? My classmates and I quickly took a stand. Certainly, we would give our lives for the prophet. I woke that night, gasping, unable to get the dream out of my head. Just 2 months earlier, I would have been willing to die for the prophet. I'd been sure. So how would I know if I was making wise choices from now on? The next morning, wrapping myself in extra layers and jackets, I went down to the ocean, intending to have a brisk walk. Instead, I ended up sitting in the sand, watching the churning waves. I thought about a quote I had read from Gandhi: "You must not lose faith in humanity. Humanity is an ocean. If a few drops of the water are dirty, the ocean does not become dirty." Short Creek had become contaminated by Warren Jeffs, but he did not represent all of humanity or even all of the FLDS. And just as I had made mistakes, those mistakes did not make up all of me. The tide was going out, and I had the weirdest sensation that it was pulling from me everything I was ready to release. As the waves came back in, I let them fill me with peace. Yeah. Just after Christmas, we received an urgent call from Mom on Ben's cell. My brother Joshua was in a great deal of trouble and needed our help. As a lost boy, Joshua had struggled outside of the FLDS and was often suicidal. See, this is the part that bothers me. You condemn them for leaving. He got kicked out. The boy was tormented and tortured by your husband and by your other sister wives and all these other things. And then when he needs help, you don't help him. And I'm trying to keep in mind that they're brought up the way that they're brought up. But you can call your daughter to do something. Like, at what point do you not see that there's more going on here? I don't know. It's just hard for me to grasp my mind around that. And I'm not trying to judge. I'm just saying. Now the police had caught him passed out drunk in the driver's seat of a vehicle with keys in the ignition. He was not yet 21, so unless he had family willing to take him in and give him some structure, he would go to jail. Cole quickly determined that Joshua should live with us, even though the apartment was tiny. So Cole determined that he should live with them, which I get. So now they're going to have to try to navigate their own things, because I'm not even thinking about the space, as well as the demons that he's dealing with. This is a lot. They need outside help. I hope they get it. He was still too ill to drive alone to Utah to retrieve him, however. So we arranged for the three of us to meet Amelia and Colin on their way back up to Canada, accompanied by Alyssa, or is it Elisa, who was going to visit them. As soon as Ben and I finished our shifts, we began to drive through the night to Pendleton, Oregon. I was terrified to see my younger siblings. The last time I had seen Joshua, I had been reeking of self-righteousness, trying to get him to acknowledge the error of his ways and repent. I was also so nervous about Amelia and Colin. I knew from limited conversations with Mom that Amelia had been sympathetic when I left, but I was no longer one of the righteous. I had no idea how Colin felt. My worst fear, however, was facing Elisa. I love my little sister more than life and didn't know if she'd forgiven me yet for leaving her in the desert town with Alan. Beyond all this, a bigger question loomed. At a rest stop, Ben and I got out to stretch. "What would you do if I was pregnant?" I asked him hesitantly. He paused for a brief moment and looked straight at me. "I would take care of you," he replied plainly. "You are not alone, Becky. I'm here." Though I had been praying that I was not pregnant, I was filled with relief knowing I would not have to go at it solo in this bizarre new world. In the early morning hours, we arrived in Pendleton. Am I saying that right? Alexa, how do you pronounce Pendleton? She always be giving up on her job. Hold on. She said it's Pendleton. Okay. An old high desert town that made me, old high desert town that reminded me of areas of Utah. Our family members had arrived a few hours before, and we were still asleep in their hotel. As I put we were, and were still asleep in their hotel. As we sipped the hot chocolate in the restaurant next door, I noticed Cole was nervous. I wondered if he still felt as guilty as I did for leaving the others. When we entered their room, the first person I noticed was Joshua. He was wearing only a thin and ragged t-shirt and thin cargo pants despite the cold, and had literally no possessions with him. Even though he was 6 years younger than me, he seemed frail and bent like an old man because of all the stuff that he's been through. It's so sad. It's so sad. We read the book The Lost Boys, and he talked about the struggles with drugs and alcohol and all those things that not just he, but some of his other fellow Lost Boys face. And to hear this and to see it, just all because of this community that supposedly is supposed to be this holy community, when you have people up top who treat people like crap. If you're really that great of a people, then I feel like judgment shouldn't be a part of your nature. What you should be serving from is a place of love. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I feel like that's where a lot of people get it wrong. Imagine if we all function from a place of love rather than all this hate and stuff like that that's going on in the world. This type of stuff bothers me. As he hugged me, though, I saw his big, careless grin and realized that my rambunctious little brother was still there. Next, I hugged Amelia and Alyssa, who were both genuinely kind to all of us. I turned to Colin to greet him, but his demeanor was cold. Of course, he was in an awkward situation. Here I was, Satan's child, with two other apostates, including the man who had stolen the prophet's wife away from the people. Elisa looked pale and unhappy. Her belly seemed bigger than when we had left. Oh, no. And I suspected that she might be pregnant. But she didn't say anything to me, and I didn't pry. She did say she was on her way to spend time in Canada without Alan before changing the subject to Warren's crazy behavior as the new prophet. Every Sunday, the congregation kept showing up in fear of what he would do next, she told us. Amelia was exceptionally kind. She brought me a letter from Christine. It said that she would remember the good times, love me, and pray for me always. My heart ached as I read. As angry as I had been that she had broken my confidence to Warren, I still loved her with my whole heart. I fingered the letter in with my hands and wished I could express that to her myself. Amelia and I went into the bathroom for some privacy, but I cried out a little when she pulled me close to hug me again. My breasts were excruciatingly tender. She is pregnant. Are you pregnant? Amelia whispered, her eyes wide with concern. I don't know, I murmured back, turning on the water so no one could hear. Do you think you could be? What will you do, Becky? I shook my head, tears spilling down my cheeks. Amelia hugged me again, this time gingerly. All too soon, it was time to go, and Ben and I drove the long drive back with Cole and Joshua. My job at the restaurant was a daily struggle. I would show up to do my very best, listening carefully to everything the owner, Elizabeth, asked me to do, but her words often confused me. Though my boss, co-workers, and I had all been raised next to one another in the United States, and we all spoke the same language, the meaning behind our words was completely different. Every night I would come home and share my confusion with Cole, who had been out of the FLDS long enough to find my stories hilarious. I tried to laugh at myself too, but my boss was often angry with me. She frequently drank throughout her shift, which loosened a very sharp tongue, and her criticism became almost crippling. To be fair, I never revealed my background to her, so she had no reason to understand my mistakes. I halfway wish she would have. And I wonder if she would have been shown a little bit more compassion. But I can understand her fear in not revealing it, because with that comes a lot of judgment that she doesn't need. I became scared of my own shadow. And finally, Elizabeth accused me of doing drugs. I assured her that was not the case, but she stayed on high alert. I enjoyed several of my coworkers, especially Mark, a young man who exhibited many effeminate behaviors. I had no point of reference. I just knew he was a sensitive, funny guy. One evening that January, my brothers came in to see me, which caused quite a stir, as they were both exceptionally handsome. All the girls and Mark asked me several questions about them. No one had recognized the fact that they were siblings. Are they seeing each other? Mark finally asked. Ew, no, I cried dramatically. It shocked me that he would ask if two brothers were seeing each other. I had no idea that Mark was gay, and my naive but passionately negative comment sorely offended him. That night, Elizabeth took me aside in a drunken rage. What the hell is your problem? And what the hell planet are you from? I left in tears of disgrace and never returned. Oh no. Nor did I ever have the chance to tell Mark that I was genuinely sorry. I had hated my boss, but was deeply saddened at the loss of Mark's friendship. Fortunately, I got another job at a cozy restaurant inside the Ramada Inn, where a new co-worker, Carol, took me under her wing. The ladies I worked with there were more mature than Elizabeth and exceptionally kind. Good. In addition, the clientele of this restaurant was also mature, primarily busloads of elderly seniors visiting the area. I found I could more easily relate to those to those conservative crowds. In this gentler climate, I could decipher the meaning of language, and I paid rapt attention. You listen as if your life depends on it, remarked one older gentleman at the table. I smiled shyly and laughed. I felt like I did. 4 people in Cole's small apartment caused more tension than we had been prepared for, and Joshua was struggling with alcoholism. I said that. Didn't I say that before getting here? It's not easy to be trying to figure out life on your own and navigate it while trying to help someone else who is struggling themselves. It needed more than just him being around them. He needs help. Hopefully they get him some. Because of Cole's focus on health, he didn't drink, but had not been judgmental of Joshua. However, the alcohol caused Joshua to behave irrationally at times. Both of my brothers began snapping at Ben for no reason and seemed to align against him. I loved my brothers dearly, but could not ignore everything Ben had done for me and my feelings for him. He and I talked about getting a place of our own, but we did not have enough money saved. When my nausea continued to worsen instead of subside, I used my tip money to buy a pregnancy test. Girl, you already knew you were pregnant. You shouldn't have wasted it on that. I'm just saying, your breasts are tender. You keep having nausea. Let's see. Maybe she's not. We'll see. When I saw the double lines, my heart fell. Oh, she is pregnant. That night, I tearfully confided to Ben, who just held me for several long moments before wiping the tears from my cheeks. We need to be honest with Cole, he said. I was worried. Whatever Joshua and I shared about our siblings had enraged him. Cole felt like he had failed us, especially when he heard that Joshua's twin Jordan had become a young, unwed father. So how could I tell him that I became pregnant, and likely while I was under his very roof? We decided to tell him that weekend after our shifts, but before that could happen, Cole got sick in the night and came out to find Ben and me together. He asked y'all not to have sex. Y'all keep having sex. And you keep on doing it in his house. In this small house. I'm going to call it what it is. It's disrespectful because he asked you not to. And if the roles were reversed, I have to think in that, like, if I was here and my sister and her man was living up in this house and I asked them to do one thing, which is to not have sex in my house, they should respect that. I think that there's certain, and if they couldn't, then they shouldn't live there. Like, these are conversations that you're supposed to have with people, and you're supposed to trust each other. So I'm interested in seeing, oh no, what happens. You can leave here now. Yeah. He pissed. He got every right to be pissed. Like, what you doing? Y'all getting it into his house. He has every right to feel away. Cole thundered angrily at our betrayal. We left immediately, but Ben made me go back to Cole's and mend some fences. For 3 long weeks, Ben lived out of his blazer, refusing to let me leave Cole's apartment in my condition to join him. He soon found a temporary room, for which I was grateful. Ben had become my best friend and confidant, and I cared for him more deeply than I had ever allowed myself to care for any man. I was just thinking about it. Remember before she was talking about how painful all of that had been, especially with her accident and things of that nature? It just goes to show you that on top of what was going on, she was most definitely being raped by that man, which we already came to that conclusion. For her to say that it hurt as much as it did, he was torturing her. In his old state, him supposedly being his prophet, he was torturing her. At home, I still had to live with my brothers, degrading remarks about Ben. I did my best to be positive in that environment and, like Ben, worked as many double shifts as I could to save money for us. I don't like the fact that Cole is so judgmental, because you're not a part of that community anymore either. And you got a lot to say about her having, I guess, premarital relations, or your siblings having had kids and all that other stuff. But there's so many more things that people could be focused on. I don't know. Maybe I take it personally because I had my child out of wedlock and it was such a big deal when it happened, even though looking at my family and not to shade, y'all, I'm going to say this. And, you know, my grandmother has been gone now for a year, but I'm just going to keep it 100% with y'all. I remember how ashamed I was because of the way that I was raised when I found out that I was pregnant, right? And I never put 2 and 2 together because it wasn't really something that we discussed. And in terms of my my dad's mom, I never met my grandfather. They weren't married. They weren't married at all. Matter of fact, his mom was never married. And she had a bunch of kids. So when I was young, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Like, I'm not asking questions. I'm not paying attention to last names. I'm not like, it's not a thing, right? I assumed, okay, these set have this last name and these set have this last name and this set has these last names. So I'm thinking, okay, she was at least married like 3 times. She was never married, but yet there was judgment there. So I'm reading this and I'm thinking that's one of the things that comes to my head. You know, it's been a long time since I did that type of tangent, but I'm just saying it's crazy to me that people are so concerned about these things. Like there's you don't have to worry about my salvation. That's not your concern. You don't have to judge me. There's things that I'm going to do that you're not going to like. There's things that you're going to do that I may not like. But guess what? It doesn't matter. You're you, I'm me. And I just don't like the judgment. I really, really don't. Because I think it gets taken too far. People are already beating themselves up enough. They don't need you to help. Trust me. I hid my pregnancy from my parents for 6 months because I was beating myself up. Yeah. And I'm sure there are many others who can relate in different ways. So with that being said, I hear stuff like this and I get really, really annoyed with her brother. And instead of going off on people, we need to find out what's going on with you health-wise. So maybe you're not so miserable. That sounds messed up to say, but I'm just saying that's the way I'm feeling because I'm not liking the judgment. Whenever I saw Ben, he would graciously remind me that I still held the power to choose where I focused my energies. I began to think less about my brother's unkindness toward him and more about creating a life together. In February 2003, Ben and I moved into our first real home together, a tiny little duplex. Good for y'all. We had no furniture and slept on the floor, but we didn't care. It hadn't taken us long to find an apartment once we put the word out to our coworkers. Even though neither of us had a lick of credit, the landlords kindly gave us a chance. The world was supposed to be so wicked, and yet here were two virtual strangers giving us an opportunity to prove ourselves. My feelings began to change. Still, I had some vitally important shifts to make on the inside. And that's the end of our reading today. I'm glad that she said that. I'm glad that they found their place and they're able to be out. If you want to log off now, you can. You guys know that they normally put pictures in the book, and since we're at the end, I'm just going to show you these pictures that are in the middle of the next chapter. First, it says one of my earliest photos I have of myself, and then it's her practicing the violin. Hopefully the white don't, because y'all know I dropped my camera in oatmeal. Oh, you can see it good. That's her, the earliest photo she has of herself. She was a pretty little girl. Her playing the violin. Next is our grandfather's ranch with one of my brothers. Then she has always an eager student here. I'm on my way to kindergarten. And then all of my unmarried sisters and me in front of the yard at our father's home. I'm the fourth one from the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So she's the one with the long hair that comes down like this. Okay. That's her and the horse. Her again. Oh, ooh, maybe it's not her again. Then all the her beautiful sisters. She said she's the fourth from the right. So I'm thinking this is her right here. Yeah, because that's the right. I showed you the right one. Next, having just finished showing my wedding dress in Canada and getting ready to leave the next morning for my Utah wedding, I engaged in a little target practice. And then on my wedding night with Rulin, my smile masking the fear and confusion I felt. Then it's a picture of her and her mom and her sisters. They went swimming fully dressed. I don't know why I thought, and it could be because of the cover, that she was like a blonde. Yeah, that was the image I had in my head, but she's clearly not a blonde. Because that's her and her mom and her sisters. Next, with my sisters in St. George. And then on the day of the 5th anniversary of my wedding to Rulin. She's a pretty girl. Beautiful smile. Pretty girl. Well, I should say pretty woman. On the rare reprieve from my married life was weekend street hockey games with friends and family members. Here I am advancing the puck. Then she has Ben and me with Kyle on Oregon shore. The ocean was such a healing presence for us as we build our new lives outside the FLDS. So I'm going to assume that Kyle is the baby that she's pregnant with now, which is why I hate spoilers. And then with a band in Coos Bay after a performance. So there goes the hockey. There goes her. There goes her and Ben. Yeah, that's a big step from that older man. Nothing wrong with older men, but come on, y'all. He could have been her great-grandfather. Oh, these are spoilers. I'm gonna stop right there. Because I don't want to. I already done got spoiled, and I don't want to spoil it for y'all. So we'll resume at the end of another chapter. Anyways, thank you guys so much. Like the video as it helps the channel. Until next time, peace.